They say a mother's intuition is stronger than logic, sharper than evidence, and louder than reason. On a cold December night, Las Cuvas would learn just how true that was. As flames tore through her Philadelphia home, consuming everything in their path, Luz faced a parent's worst nightmare. Her 10-day-old daughter, Delimar, was trapped inside. The chaos was overwhelming, thick smoke filling the air, the crackling of flames devouring the walls, and the frantic cries of neighbors echoing in the background. Luz ran towards Delimer's room, but when she opened the door, she froze. The crib was empty. In the days that followed, authorities delivered their grim conclusion. The fire, they said, had been accidental, a tragic result of an overheated extension cord attached to a space heater. They assured Laz and her husband, Pedro Vera, that Delimer had perished in the blaze, her small body consumed by the inferno. But something about their explanation didn't sit right with Luz. She didn't just think her baby wasn't in that crib, she knew it. And that's when the questions began to gnaw at her. What really happened to Delimer that night? But in a world where logic rules and grief clouds clarity, who would believe her? As Luz tried to move forward, one thing became certain: this fire was just the beginning of a story far darker and more twisted than anyone could imagine. Grief has a way of silencing questions, forcing acceptance even when answers don't quite fit. But Los Cuvas wasn't the kind of mother to let doubt rest quietly. Every time she replayed the night of the fire in her mind, one detail refused to be ignored. When she burst into Delimer's room through the smoke and panic, the crib wasn't just empty, it was untouched by the flames. She had told the investigators this, but they dismissed it as shock clouding her memory. To them, the explanation was simple. The fire consumed everything, including her 10-day-old baby. But Luz knew what she saw, or, more importantly, what she didn't see. Delimar wasn't there. Luz couldn't shake the feeling that her daughter had been taken, not lost to the flames. And then there were the small, subtle clues that kept her suspicion alive: the strange behavior of a family acquaintance just before the fire, the gnawing sense of something deeply wrong. But every time she voiced her doubts, she was met with the same patronizing response: "You need to move on." Still, Luz couldn't. The ache of a mother's loss was there, but so was something else, a whisper deep in her soul that her baby was alive. She didn't have proof. She didn't have answers. But what Laz did have was unshakable intuition, and sometimes that's enough to rewrite a tragedy into a mystery. Every mystery has a shadow, a figure that hovers on the edges of chaos, too close to be coincidence, yet not close enough to be immediately suspect. For Las Cuvas, that shadow was Carolyn Correa. Carolyn wasn't a stranger, but she wasn't exactly family either. A distant relative by marriage, she had visited the Cuvas' home the day before the fire. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary until she returned the very next day. "I left my purse upstairs," she said, her tone calm, almost casual. Carolyn didn't linger long, just a few minutes before leaving again. But not long after her second visit, the fire erupted. At the time, Luz didn't think much of it. She was consumed by the chaos of the blaze and the gut-wrenching realization that her daughter was gone. But in the quiet aftermath, as doubt and suspicion took root, Carolyn's sudden reappearance gnawed at Luz's mind. Why had she come back? Why hadn't anyone seen her purse the day before? And most troubling of all, how was it that Carolyn had slipped away just minutes before the fire began? To the investigators, it was a tragic accident, nothing more. But to us, Carolyn's visit felt like the missing piece of a puzzle she didn't yet know how to solve. The question lingered, dark and unanswered. What did Carolyn Correa leave behind other than her purse? By January 2004, 6 long years had passed since that horrific night. For most people, time has a way of dulling pain and bringing closure, but not for Las Cuvas. The questions that burned in her heart were as alive as the flames that had engulfed her home. And then came the birthday party. It was supposed to be an ordinary afternoon cake, laughter, the chatter of children. But Luz's world tilted when her eyes landed on a young girl named Aliyah. Something about her was familiar. It wasn't just her face, though that was striking enough. It was the way she smiled, the way her eyes sparkled in a way that pulled Luz back 6 years to a baby she had held in her arms, a baby she had refused to believe was gone. Her heart raced. Could this child be her Delimar? As the party continued, Luz couldn't look away. She studied Aliyah's features, her expressions, her mannerisms. The resemblance was uncanny not to just anyone, but to Luz's family. But how could she prove what her heart was screaming? And even more terrifying, what if she was wrong? Despite the doubt swirling in her mind, Luz knew one thing with absolute certainty. She had to find out the truth, no matter what it took. And in that moment, the fire that had never truly died inside her began to burn brighter than ever. The more Las Cuvas watched Aliyah, the stronger her conviction grew. She couldn't explain it, she just knew. But intuition alone wasn't enough. She needed proof, something concrete to confirm the impossible. So Luz did what any determined mother would do. She devised a plan. Approaching Aliyah with a warm smile, Luz leaned in close. "Oh no, sweetheart," she said, gently brushing the young girl's hair. "It looks like you've got a little gum stuck in there." Aliyah froze, her wide eyes trusting, as Luz carefully tugged a few strands loose. It was such a small moment, innocent on the surface. No one at the party thought twice about it. But to Laz, those few strands of hair were everything. It wasn't guilt or uncertainty that gripped her now, it was resolve. With this hair, she could finally seek the truth that had eluded her for 6 agonizing years. As she left the party, strands of Aliyah's hair safely tucked away, Luz felt a mixture of fear and hope. She was taking the first real step toward unraveling a mystery that had haunted her every waking moment. But deep down, Luz also knew that the answers she sought might not come easily or without a price. The wait for the DNA results was unbearable. Every second felt like a lifetime, every day weighed down by an impossible mix of hope and dread. Los Cuvas had spent 6 years fighting against what the world told her to believe. Now she was just one answer away from knowing the truth. When the results finally came in, Luz could hardly breathe. She unfolded the paper with trembling hands, her heart pounding so loudly it drowned out the world around her. And there it was. The child she had met at the party, Aliyah, was her Delimar. The revelation hit her like a tidal wave, equal parts joy and rage. Her daughter was alive. But that also meant everything she had believed about the fire, about that night, was a lie. Someone had taken Delimar from her, stolen 6 precious years. This wasn't just a miracle, it was the beginning of a nightmare. With DNA evidence in hand, Luz turned to law enforcement, determined to uncover the truth about what had happened. The fire that had been dismissed as an accident now looked like a cover up, and Carolyn Correa, the distant relative whose visit preceded the fire, was suddenly a key figure in a story that was unraveling fast. But the question remained, why? As investigators reopened the case, the puzzle pieces began to shift, revealing a darker, more calculated crime than anyone had imagined. And for Luz, the fight wasn't over, it was just beginning. The truth about Carolyn Correa was more horrifying than Las Cuvas could have ever imagined. Investigators pieced together the shocking details, and what emerged was a chilling tale of betrayal, obsession, and desperation. Carolyn hadn't come to the Cuvas' home that day by coincidence. She hadn't left her purse upstairs by accident. It was all part of a carefully orchestrated plan, a plan to take baby Delimar. The investigation uncovered that Carolyn had long desired a child but was unable to have one. Her visits to Luz's home weren't innocent family gatherings, they were scouting missions. On the day of the fire, Carolyn had seized her opportunity. She had taken Delimar from her crib and set the fire as a distraction, knowing that the flames would erase any evidence of the kidnapping. In the years that followed, Carolyn raised Delimar as her own, renaming her Aliyah and passing her off as her biological child. She created an elaborate lie, telling friends and family that Aliyah was her daughter, born naturally and without complications. But what drove her to commit such a heinous act? Investigators speculated that Carolyn's deep emotional scars, possibly stemming from personal struggles and a longing for motherhood, had warped her sense of right and wrong. In her mind, taking Delimar wasn't a crime, it was the solution to her pain. Yet no justification could erase the devastating consequences of her actions. She had stolen a child from her parents, destroyed a family, and forced Luz to live in agony for 6 long years. As this dark motive came to light, the case against Carolyn Correa became undeniable. But for Luz, the hardest part wasn't understanding why Carolyn had done it. It was reckoning with the fact that someone she had once trusted had betrayed her in the most unimaginable way. The questions now turned to justice. Would Carolyn Correa face the consequences of her crime? And what would it take to reunite Delimar with the family she had been stolen from? Justice often moves slowly, but when it does, it can hit with the force of a reckoning. For Carolyn Correa, that reckoning came swiftly after the DNA evidence confirmed Olia's true identity as Delimar Vera. The police arrested Carolyn, and the charges were as severe as the crimes she had committed: kidnapping, arson, reckless endangerment, and a host of other offenses tied to the night she had destroyed one family to create her own lie. The courtroom was a battleground of emotions. On one side sat Luz Cuvas, a mother whose determination to uncover the truth had finally brought her daughter back. On the other, Carolyn Correa, a woman who had manipulated, deceived, and endangered lives in pursuit of her twisted desires. Throughout the trial, the evidence against Carolyn was overwhelming. Witnesses recalled her visits to the Cuvas' home, her suspicious behavior, and the elaborate lies she told over the years to sustain her illusion of motherhood. Experts testified about the arson, detailing how the fire had been intentionally set to obliterate any trace of the crime. Carolyn showed little remorse as the details of her actions were laid bare. Her defense tried to argue emotional distress and a history of personal struggles, but the jury saw through it. They didn't see a victim of circumstance, they saw a calculated predator. The verdict was unanimous: guilty on all counts. The sentence: a term of 9 to 30 years in prison, ensuring Carolyn would face the consequences of her heinous actions. For Luz, hearing the sentence was both a relief and a reminder of the long road ahead. Justice had been served, but no punishment could ever erase the pain and loss her family endured. As Carolyn was led out of the courtroom in handcuffs, Luz held on to one thought: her daughter was finally safe. But the scars of those 6 lost years would take much longer to heal for everyone involved. Reuniting Las Cuvas with her daughter, Delimar, should have been a moment of unbridled joy, but reality is rarely so simple. For 6 years, Delimar had lived as Aaliyah, raised by Carolyn Correa. To her, Carolyn wasn't a kidnapper. She was the only mother she had ever known. When Luz first approached her daughter, it wasn't with the open arms of a mother, but with the careful steps of a stranger. Delimar didn't recognize her. How could she? She had been so young when she was taken. For Delimar, this wasn't a reunion, it was an upheaval of her entire identity. Experts were brought in to help ease the transition. Child psychologists worked closely with the family, emphasizing that Delimar's well being had to come first. Luz wanted nothing more than to hold her daughter and make up for lost time, but she understood the importance of patience. Slowly, piece by piece, the bond between mother and daughter began to rebuild. Luz shared stories, photos, and memories, giving Delimar a glimpse into the life she had been stolen from. And while the path was far from smooth, one thing became clear: the love between a mother and her child might bend, but it never truly breaks. The emotional fallout from Delimar's abduction reverberated through the Cuvas family like an aftershock. For Luz, the years of grief and relentless pursuit of the truth had left deep scars. She had spent so long fighting for her daughter that she now had to learn how to simply be her mother again. For Delimar, the effects were even more profound. Learning that her life had been built on lies shook her to the core. The woman she had called Mom for 6 years was now a criminal in her eyes, a stranger who had stolen her away. The family she was now reuniting with felt both familiar and foreign, a confusing blend of love and uncertainty. Therapists played a crucial role in helping the family navigate these emotions. Sessions focused on rebuilding trust, processing trauma, and forging new connections. Over time, Delimar began to understand her story, not just the tragedy, but also the love and determination that had brought her back home. But healing wasn't linear. There were moments of anger, confusion, and sadness, particularly for Delimar as she grappled with the loss of the only life she had known. Yet, through it all, the Cuvas family's resilience shone through, proving that even the deepest wounds can heal with time and support. The story of Delimar Vera captivated the nation, with headlines blaring the shocking details of her disappearance, abduction, and miraculous reunion. News outlets marveled at Luz's unwavering intuition, framing her as a mother who had defied the odds to bring her daughter home. But the media attention was a double edged sword. On one hand, it raised critical awareness about child abduction, shining a light on the importance of never dismissing a parent's instincts. On the other, it thrust the Cuvas family into an unrelenting spotlight, forcing them to relive their trauma on a public stage. Luz used the platform to advocate for other families of missing children, urging them to trust their instincts and fight for answers. Her story became a rallying cry, a symbol of hope for those still searching for their loved ones. Meanwhile, debates about the case swirled in the public eye. How could such a crime go unnoticed for so long? Were there warning signs that had been ignored? The scrutiny extended beyond the Cuvas family, forcing the legal system to confront its failures in cases of presumed child deaths. For Luz and her family, the media coverage was a constant reminder of their pain, but also a testament to their strength. Their story wasn't just about loss, it was about survival, love, and the unyielding power of a mother's determination. In the wake of Delimar's miraculous reunion with her family, the Philadelphia community came together in an outpouring of support. Neighbors who had once grieved alongside Luz now celebrated her resilience and strength. Local organizations offered resources to help the family adjust, providing counseling services, financial aid, and childcare support. Churches hosted fundraisers, and community leaders spoke publicly about the importance of standing by families in crisis. For Luz, this support wasn't just comforting, it was vital. She had spent years fighting her battle alone, facing doubt and disbelief at every turn. Now, seeing her community rally around her was a reminder that she and her family were no longer in this struggle by themselves. While the scars of the past could never fully disappear, the unwavering support of the Philadelphia community gave the Cuvas family a foundation to begin healing. The Delimar Vera case sent shockwaves through the justice system, forcing officials to confront the gaps in how missing children cases were handled. One of the most glaring issues was the declaration of Delimar's death based solely on circumstantial evidence. The fire had been ruled accidental, and Delimar's death was presumed without concrete proof. This assumption allowed Carolyn Correa to escape suspicion and live undetected for years. Advocates argued that cases involving children should require more thorough investigations before reaching such final conclusions. Lawmakers and child protection agencies began discussing reforms, including mandatory protocols for verifying a child's death in cases involving fire or other catastrophic events. These reforms aimed to ensure that no other family would endure what the Cuvas family had, a dismissal of hope based on incomplete evidence. The case became a catalyst for change, highlighting the need for vigilance, transparency, and better collaboration between law enforcement, social services, and the courts. At the heart of this extraordinary case was one undeniable truth. Luz Cuvas's intuition had been her guiding light. Despite being told her daughter was gone, despite the years of doubt and dismissal, she never stopped believing Delimar was alive. Luz's unwavering faith in her instincts became a key force in unraveling the mystery. Without her persistence, the truth about Carolyn Correa's actions might never have come to light. The case sparked conversations about the power of maternal intuition, with experts pointing out that parents often sense when something is wrong, even when evidence suggests otherwise. Luz's story became a testament to the idea that intuition isn't just an emotional response, it can be a powerful tool in seeking justice. For Luz, her belief in her daughter's survival wasn't just a mother's love, it was her compass, guiding her through 6 years of uncertainty and pain to the ultimate truth. And in the end, that intuition was what brought Delimar home. Reuniting Delimar with her biological family wasn't just about bringing her home, it was about rebuilding a bond severed by 6 years of lies. For Delimar, who had been raised as Aaliyah, everything familiar had been upended. Las Cuvas may have been her biological mother, but to Delimar, Carolyn Correa had been her entire world. Adding to the complexity were cultural and language barriers. Delimar had grown up in a different environment, one that didn't reflect the customs and language of her biological family. Luz and her family had to navigate these differences delicately, understanding that their excitement to reclaim their daughter could overwhelm the young girl. Therapists and counselors played a vital role, facilitating conversations and helping the family find common ground. Luz knew it wouldn't happen overnight, but she was patient. Slowly, trust began to form, and the ties of love started to take hold again. Still, the journey wasn't without its setbacks. Delimar struggled to process her new reality, and Luz often questioned whether she was doing enough. Yet, their shared resilience and determination pushed them forward, proving that rebuilding a family, though difficult, was not impossible. While Luz and her family worked toward healing, the repercussions of Carolyn Correa's actions rippled through her own life and relationships. Her imprisonment not only destroyed her fabricated world, but also left those closest to her grappling with betrayal and disbelief. Friends and relatives of Carolyn were stunned by the revelation. Many had believed her story, never suspecting that Aaliyah was, in fact, Delimar. The deception shattered their trust, and for those who had been complicit in Carolyn's lies, whether knowingly or unknowingly, there was guilt that would linger for years. As Carolyn sat behind bars, her motivations became the subject of speculation. Was she driven by a desperate longing for motherhood, or was her crime rooted in something darker, like a need for control or attention? These questions haunted everyone who had once called her family. For Carolyn, the weight of her actions became inescapable. Her imprisonment ensured she would never hurt another family, but it also left behind a legacy of pain that could not be undone. As Delimar grew older, her understanding of her past became a defining part of her identity. Learning that she had been kidnapped as an infant and raised under a false name wasn't just shocking, it was life altering. Delimar often sought answers to questions that no one could fully explain. Why had Carolyn taken her? Why had she been chosen? And what would her life have been like if she had never been taken? These questions required ongoing support from her family, who worked tirelessly to create a safe space for Delimar to explore her feelings. Open communication became a cornerstone of their relationship, allowing Delimar to express her confusion, anger, and even grief for the life she thought she had. Over time, Delimar began to see her story not just as one of loss, but also one of strength. She found empowerment in the love of her biological family and the determination that had brought her back to them. Though the scars of her past would never fully fade, Delimar's journey toward understanding became a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. The Delimar Vera case captured the attention of the nation, serving as a sobering reminder of the realities of child abduction. It became a rallying point for advocates and law enforcement, emphasizing the need for vigilance and thorough investigations, especially in cases involving children. One of the most powerful lessons from the case was the importance of trusting a parent's intuition. Luz's refusal to accept the official story ultimately led to the truth, proving that a parent's voice should never be dismissed in matters of life and death. The case also highlighted the signs of abduction that often go unnoticed: suspicious behavior, abrupt changes in circumstances, and seemingly coincidental tragedies. It underscored the necessity of following every lead, no matter how unlikely it may seem. For families of missing children, the story of Luz and Delimar became a beacon of hope. It showed that even in the darkest of circumstances, miracles could happen when persistence and love refused to waver. And for Luz, sharing her story became a way to help others, ensuring that no family would have to fight as hard or as alone as she once did. The story of Luz Cuvas and her daughter Delimar is not just one of tragedy and betrayal, it's a testament to the unyielding power of persistence. Luz's determination to seek the truth, even when everyone else told her to let go, proved that a mother's love can be the most powerful force of all. For 6 long years, she faced skepticism, disbelief, and despair. She was told to accept the official narrative and move on, but her heart refused. Her persistence broke through the barriers of doubt and bureaucracy, leading to the unraveling of a crime that might have otherwise remained hidden. Luz's fight wasn't just for herself. It was for Delimar, for her family, and for every parent who has ever been told to ignore their instincts. Her journey reminds us that justice is not always served easily, but with relentless advocacy and love, it can be achieved. The Delimar Vera case leaves behind lessons that extend far beyond the family involved. It underscores the critical importance of listening to victims' families, those who often hold the most vital clues to the truth. This case also highlights systemic flaws in how missing children cases are handled. The assumption of death without concrete evidence allowed Carolyn Correa to hide in plain sight for years, emphasizing the need for reforms in investigative protocols. Most importantly, the story is a reminder of the strength found in familial bonds. Despite the years of separation and unimaginable pain, the Cuvas family's love and resilience endured, proving that even the deepest wounds can heal with time and effort. The Delimar Vera case is a story of heartbreak, hope, and triumph. It reminds us that persistence, intuition, and love can overcome even the darkest of circumstances. If you're moved by stories like this, remember that there are still countless families searching for answers. Stay vigilant, trust your instincts, and never underestimate the power of persistence. Share this story to raise awareness about child abduction and the need for justice. And don't forget to subscribe to Crime Pulse Stories for more gripping true crime cases that uncover the truth, one story at a time. Together, let's shine a light on the mysteries that demand answers.